I'm Sahara, and welcome to our podcast every week now after 1 p.m. We're here to change the world one conversation at a time.
And I'm AJ. We're here to talk today about basically alternative living lifestyles, nomadic living, communal living, things that go beyond the single family home.
Definitely. Many people are so drawn to the simplicity or the environmental benefits, so many different kinds of cost benefits and different things in these lifestyles. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you, smash those buttons, get notified, like, follow, subscribe, show your support, hit that bell so then you know every time there's a new show.
So when we're talking about alternative living, especially in the US. I don't know about other countries and how it's shifted for them, but I know in the US in the last like 10 years, um, it's gone beyond the whole single family home to
Definitely.
where you've got intentional communities, you've got communal living, multi-generational homes, people living nomadic, people that are choosing to be homeless because they find it easier than having a home. Um,
Definitely. Homeless or houseless is a term I hear a lot
yeah,
too.
houseless,
Mm.
I know like out where we grew up, there's whole communities of people that are choosing to live that way. And there's
Definitely,
nothing wrong
yeah.
with it if that's what they want to do. Personally,
Well, we can get into that more, definitely.
yeah.
Talking about kind of where we grew up, I have been watching for the last 10 years or so a real intentional tiny home community
Right.
taking place and forming. I don't think we're going to talk about that one particularly today, but I do want to kind of get that thought to maybe talk about that, talk to some folks. So, you guys, if you are part of any kind of intentional living community, hit us up, email.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Personally for me, I mean, for over a decade, I just rented a room from some friends and it worked for the time. I didn't really have my own space though. I mean, I had my own room, but that was pretty much all I had.
Yeah.
Um, but I did that for years. And finally last year, I was like, I'd really like to buy my own house. And that was part of the reason I stayed there as long as I did, because I was trying to save up enough money to and build my credit enough to be able to, get my own
Bye.
place. So
Yeah.
last year I went on the house hunt and I found the house I live in now. Um, it's a much larger house than I probably would have bought if it was just going to be for me. But
Okay.
at the time, I had some friends that were living in a house together, and they were already living in a communal living situation where everybody kind of chipped in around the house, cleaning and cooking and paying the bills and things like that. But their house was way too small for the number of individuals that were living there.
Oh, okay.
So when I started looking for a place, I brought them in with me to look at places to make sure it was going to fit so we could all move in together and share a space where we would all have our own individual rooms and then have a community space as well. So we ended up buying this house and um, we there's five adults, one child, and
Okay.
we all have our own bedrooms. We all share in all of the expenses. We share in the chores. Everybody has a monthly, weekly, daily chore. Um, Everybody has one night a week that they cook a meal. Everybody has one night a week that they clean up after that meal. And then we have like 2 nights that we have a kitchen clean out where everybody eats the leftovers from all of the meals that have been made. So, I mean,
Nice.
it works. It works. It's not without its challenges because,
Yeah,
there is five adults and one child, but like you're going to get that in a single family home too.
definitely.
So it works for us. It's not for everybody, but it does work for us and it works for a lot of other people as well.
Definitely. I've heard of other communal living situations like that. Some more formal than yours, where yours reminds me more of the episode we were just talking about chosen family.
Yeah,
And that kind
exactly.
of situation that's just come together in your life in a real beautiful daily way.
Right.
And I think our choosing our living situations is really important for our hearts. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, when I was raising my kids and I homeschooled, I had a little townhouse. I was a single mom and it was just the kids and I.
Hmm.
Wonderful. We did that. I did that for a long time. And then I got married and then it was a single family dwelling home until I had divorced about 10 years ago. And since then, I
Hmm.
would say I've started to experience, or I've experienced a couple different alternative lifestyle living situations. About 10 years ago, right after my divorce, I hit the road in a like nomadic van dwelling, not tiny
Hmm.
home, but the van life situation that's so
Right.
popular and has been so popular. And that was 10 years ago before it's really exploded, I think, into what it is now. And it was a fun situation. Um, Out on the road, cooking breakfast, in different places, exploring different places, having a little, white gas stove. There you go. Your eggs with breakfast and all of that. And as people kind of gathered in different spaces and community, you would get together and share your coffee and your eggs in the morning. It was a lot of fun. I saw a lot of things up and down the road that I hadn't before. Um,
Yeah.
Learned about stealthy parking in different cities and different places, finding national park areas to
Hmm.
be in and live in. I mean, I just really learned a lot. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot of work. I learned a lot and I saw a lot. Three lessons I really learned from this time was people give you more money when you're holding a sign than when you're out busking. But also the people giving you the money are often the ones digging for the change and really can't afford it. Real
Right.
interesting to me in that way. There
Yeah.
was we would busk a lot. He was a musician, really great music. I have a singing
Hmm.
bowl I play, so we would not. When I finally like agreed to get out there and fly that sign, 20 minutes, an hour, maybe $100+ but we
Right.
wouldn't do that good ever busking for hours on end even. It
Hmm.
was disheartening in that way. Another thing I learned was we really need to educate ourselves better. We need to educate ourselves better as to how we conduct our business in the national forest, the national park plans. I don't know how many different spaces I visited where there were piles of toilet paper all over the place. People don't do that. Actually,
Yeah.
dig a hole the way you're supposed to dig a hole if you really have to do that. But there's an old saying, bring it in, pack it out. Like we need to educate ourselves better in these ways. That's just
Yeah.
hazardous to everything. Um,
Hmm.
I think the third thing I really learned and really walked away with is there's a really great freedom in being nomadic in van life and maybe there's these different kinds of RV lives that are popping up. There's great freedom in that, but there's also this sense of uneasiness when you're living with wheels underneath you.
Right.
I would say that's really what I found in that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing kind of in the past, or that's what I started doing that couple years. And then here recently, in my last several years, I really experienced multi-generational living with my family. I had an
Hmm.
experience over summer. It was fortunately last season of my great uncle's life. He was going through cancer and all of that. And
Hmm.
I dropped everything to be able to be there in those moments, to be a part of my family, caring for my family. Since then, I've also spent a
Yeah.
season with other family going who's had health issues, strokes, and those things. I'm currently in a multi-generational family situation for this summer season again.
Hmm.
Um, my son-in-law's grandfather, so then he can stay home. my kids are here, and then my grandson, and we'll get to homeschool, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So we'll talk about homeschooling another time. But like you said, it's been interesting, it's been challenging, and I don't know what the next season is holding, but I really don't see myself ever just kind of going and being in an apartment by myself,
Yeah. You
you
know,
know?
I've done the whole living by myself in an apartment, which was great because I could do whatever the hell I wanted at whatever hour of the day I wanted, and I didn't have to answer to anybody. But it was also a lot of work because everything was on me to pay all the bills and do all the cooking, do all the cleanup, take care of everything basically. But I mean, and which is it's fine. It was great. I've done
Yeah,
that though, and I don't know, maybe someday I'll go back to it, but right now this communal living situation works for me. Earlier I talked about like the cost of living and
yeah.
just how it skyrocketed, and I've got a few facts here that basically the national average home price in the US right now is
Mhm.
$429,000 with
Wow.
the average median size is only around 2,300 square feet. And that's for newer constructions. Older constructions are 18 to 2,000. Now,
Yeah.
when I was looking at smaller homes than what I've got, they were roughly $20,000 cheaper than what I got for a 5 bedroom house.
Wow. Okay, that's
Is
not
insane.
that.
And that was for like a 2 to 3 bedroom.
Yeah.
That is insane to me that houses that were just as nice but 2 bedrooms smaller are going to be that expensive compared to a huge 5 bedroom house.
Yeah, definitely. Like, wow. Wow. Across the country, like kind of across the board.
Yeah,
It's just it is becoming unattainable, I
right.
suppose,
Now
for a
the
lot of
last
people in a lot of different places.
right, and the last time I had an apartment, I was paying 425 a month for a 1 bedroom apartment.
Yep,
It was just
I
this
remember
small
that.
basement apartment, and it worked. It was perfect size for me. I didn't need more room than that.
I had something
You
similar
know,
to that, even in
yeah, and
price. Yeah.
that was 425 a month. The national
Hmm.
average for a 1 bedroom apartment now, actually a studio apartment, is $898. That
Wow,
is
that's
twice what I
crazy.
was paying for my tiny apartment over there. In fact, that tiny apartment over there is now renting for $900.
Wow. Okay, that's more than doubled.
That is more than double what I was paying.
More
And that
than
was
doubled.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane to me how the prices have just skyrocketed over the past decade or so.
Within, yeah, our lifetime real
And
quickly.
I don't see it ever going down either, unfortunately. It's just the sign of the times. I mean, we were talking about the other day, Sahara and I were the when our parents bought our homes that we grew up in. I know
Oh
my
yeah.
parents paid $38,000 for our little 3 bedroom house that was less than 1,000 square feet.
Yep, that's right.
Right now, after looking it up on Zillow, that house is going for $405,000. And what were the numbers on your house? Do you remember?
Um, I don't I don't remember how much my parents paid. It was around 100,000. I think my house was a bit bigger than yours. I can't remember it
It
is.
was.
It 13 or 18?
I think it was 13.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's going for a little bit more than yours. 411, 415, something
Yeah,
like that. Somewhere around there.
yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, the increase,
I mean,
definitely.
granted, those houses were built in the 70s, so I mean they're 50 years old. But like, still, it's just insane to me how my grandparents since they passed, their house recently went on the market. When they bought the house, I don't know what they paid for it, but it was in the 60s, so I'm gonna guess it was pretty cheap. but it was a
Oh yeah,
five bedroom, two bath house, huge split level house, beautiful, beautiful property, 10 acres of land behind them.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm sure they paid under 100,000 for it at the time, and now it is selling for around 800,000.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that's the market right now. It
yeah,
really is. It really
yeah,
is. I mean, just the thought of buying something. Not that it's
hmm,
ever been in my thoughts, because really it hasn't, but maybe a
right,
force someday. You'll hear me say that. But it just, yeah, so unattainable.
yeah. Well, even
I,
when I got into this house that I live in, like we hadn't even been here a month before the mortgage company had basically said, we didn't get a proper appraisal on this house. We want to go ahead and pay for an appraisal. And so they did. They sent an appraiser out. And the value of the home within that month, and all we did in that first month was put some doors on the office that was previously just an open archway. Okay, that was the only change we made, was putting doors on that. It went up by another 10 grand.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'd say that's more
So
than doors, but I
right.
personally,
Like it was $500 for two doors that swing open, and we just added $10,000 value to the house.
yeah,
Insane.
that's insane, insane. I don't know.
So when we're talking earlier about like the alternative living lifestyles, like the nomadic living and stuff, there's also alternative housing that a lot of
Yeah,
people are going towards. Where, like, we mentioned the tiny homes.
yeah,
There's these things called Earthship homes, which are basically they're a unique style of architecture. They were developed in the 1970s by Michael Reynolds. To be honest, when I look at them, I think this looks like something out of Star Wars. Um, but
depending on the,
they're
yeah, which
basically
one?
they're constructed using natural materials, um, recyclable materials such as earth packed tires,
Yeah.
cans, bottles, and you can shape them any way you want. And they've been noted to have, energy saving costs because a lot of them
Oh,
go off
definitely,
solar. Better
definitely.
for rainwater
Yeah.
harvesting, waste recycling.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
just make a model of sustainable living. Um, and they're
They're
becoming,
pretty
while they
cool.
were developed in 1970s. I mean, I know you said you'd stayed at one, right?
Well, I'm not sure that it was a specifically an Earthship, but it was kind of modeled after that.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't have some of the features that Michael Reynolds Earthships have, like the river or the little pond or creek flowing through your house
Right.
that has fish that you're going to be eating for dinner, and the water system that brings your gray water around into your
Right.
plants and watering your plants, which are also food for dinner, and those
Hmm.
kinds of things. And they also keep temperature regulation, having that kind of environment going
Right.
on in there with the plants and the
Right.
food source. What it did have is kind of, I think, some of the recycled elements, like the glass bottles. I remember those now. It's been about 10 years since I've been there. And just that real mud stucco feeling, like a lot of the earth chips will have, or some of these alternative living situations that are similar to the earth chips.
Hmm.
And the stove that went through downstairs, that piping through the mud, the stucco part really heated everything as you used the outdoor kind of wood stove, old school traditional wood stove system.
Now, do they
Uh,
have like indoor plumbing and things like that?
this particular one, did it have? I don't remember that it did in this
Okay.
particular one, what was going on with that plumbing. and we kind of just spent one night in it. It doesn't feel like we had to really go right into some crazy situation for plumbing, but I don't remember. I remember the beautiful like upstairs bedroom space really was neat, open window, kind of out into
Hmm.
the stars, just this really neat kind of earthy feel in the whole home was
Yeah.
really amazing. So, but I am fascinated with his Earthships and their different designs and
Yeah.
the fact that you can even go stay in one kind of
Hmm.
like a bed and breakfast scenario thought. We will make sure that we link that below as we talk about these Earthships a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. My friends were actually looking at buying some property out west at one point, and they were all going to just buy this big like acreage of land and build their own homes on it. And they were going to build whatever they wanted. One of them wanted to build out of shipping containers and build like a tiny
Okay.
home living out of shipping containers. Another one was actually really interested in doing the Earthship homes. So they did a lot of research for that. So we're actually going to bring one of them in here today and let them kind of give their insight and what they researched and everything. So everybody, welcome Carrie. So this is Carrie. She's got a friend that was doing a lot of wanting to do an Earthship home. So she did a lot of research and trying to help with that. So Carrie, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Hi. So when I was doing the research about Earthship homes, I discovered that Michael Reynolds had started this shortly after he graduated from the architecture school that he went to. He graduated in 69, so the first 2 years in the 70s, he spent that time getting a patent with the area that he was looking to put the Earthship homes in. So the basic concept of it is he wanted a self-sustaining home that used as many reusable materials or materials from the area.
Okay.
So the basic designs are off-grid, minimum dependence upon public works. Some areas they still need to have water because they don't have water underneath the ground. So it kind of there's no water table there to tap into. So
Right.
they still
Okay.
have to have certain things available. Other aspects are they upcycle a lot of the materials that would normally end up in landfill, particularly glasses and tires. Now, at the very beginning of his patent and working through the process, recycling hadn't actually started being as prevalent. So they had a lot of tin cans and pieces, I think they called them scrap metal, just scrap steel, that they were
Okay.
putting inside of it because it would work as like a structural to keep that integrity. Because the basic concept is it's like a pueblo or an adobe style structure. So it
Right.
looks very much like the terrain it's in. It uses the sand, the silt, even including rocks and other stones that are in the area themselves.
Okay. Okay.
They started in the Southwest, right?
Yep. It's actually started up in Taos, Taos. I don't think
House.
I'm Taos, New Mexico. I knew I wasn't going to say it correctly. But
I've been looking at that word, yeah.
the main reason why they went with that section of the country was because there isn't as much precipitation in that area.
Hmm.
So when they would collect the rainwater, it was something that they could collect and reuse for what they would use, basically for plants. Although there is also some speculation and some usage of what they call gray water, which I can get into that in a minute. But they've explained in all of the videos and all of the documents that I've read by Michael and his crew that these types of style homes don't usually work in marshy areas or areas that get lots of rain and lots of water. So it wouldn't be applicable in, say, Alaska or in the Midwest where we are currently, just because we get so much water and it would stay within the ground. So it wouldn't.
I would guess the more humid climates, it wouldn't really work well. Like in Florida, it would probably wouldn't work well.
It would if they could use stuff like hempcrete, because hempcrete, which is also another one of their materials that they've started using in the last few years, can actually be fire resistant and it's water resistant because of the way the hemp is. It wicks the water away and it allows it to dry out a lot quicker.
Okay.
So it's really kind of nice. And I think that main component is because of the lime that they use in conjunction with the hemp when they make the hempcrete.
Now
Interesting.
I know a lot of these houses have like solar energy, but what about indoor plumbing?
That's where the use of tapping into the water underneath the ground, if there's a water table on that property, helps out. Otherwise, they'll do a lot of the rainwater collection systems
Okay.
because then they can filter it. There's sometimes I hear of people getting a big cistern or something on their property, like a big water tower that they collect the water in, and that does help create some of the pressure. But you
Okay.
can't really hide the water towers. Another aspect is they like to try to make the house blend into the surroundings. So as you're coming around a curve and around the hill of the house is usually built into the side of a hill to where you don't see it until you're right up on the house.
So like something out of The Hobbit or Star Wars.
Kind of, yeah. And
That's
Star Wars is
beautiful.
really honestly accurate to the concept because if you think of back when they were doing the whole um oh not it's the sand planet and I'm so horrible for this. Tattooing, when they were showing us on Tattooing the house that Baru and Owen had, the way it's built like a pueblo and like the adobe structures, it looks like the surrounding area. It's the same color as the surrounding area.
Okay.
And the benefit to that is it if it's all black, it's going to absorb too much heat.
Right.
And the idea behind the Earthships home are to allow you to have geothermal heating and cooling. So they'll have one main bank of windows that allows the sun to come in, and that's usually onto the greenhouse structure side of the house. And
Okay.
that heat usually is south facing those windows, most likely, at least in the typical buildings that he's done. And that heat coming in will actually allow the plants to grow, obviously, but it also creates, like I'm saying, a heat bank that will last through the night because in New Mexico, Arizona, all of the southern states, it gets really cold at night to where it's almost 45 degrees or lower at night. So having that heat bank to where that big wall in the center of the house or the big windows have now created a area for the heat to redistribute throughout the house. And then for the cooling, they'll have tubing or metal air ducts that are going underneath the hill, sometimes even underneath the house itself. And what they do is they have a fan that pulls or pushes the air in or out. And as the air goes through this metal tubing underneath the ground, it cools it off and it comes back out. Most of the houses stay between 68 and 72 degrees year round.
So that
Wow,
would be
that's really
ideal
cool.
temperatures for me. So that actually sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that's
do
so
have the
comfortable.
option of adding things like rocket stoves. And the rocket stoves are a very small base stove that, again, has a big tubing of metal tubing underneath a seat or underneath some place that you're going to warm up the house. So if you don't have a big bank of windows, that rocket stove, you can put minimal, maybe one piece of wood in there. And because of how enclosed it is and how slow the wood would burn, it creates enough heat that it distributes through the tubing and creates a bank of heat on its own.
Okay.
And then that tubing just kind of goes all throughout the house in different ways, depending
Yeah.
on
Mm-hmm. The
how
rocket
you want to
stoves I'm
build them.
still a
Yeah.
little uneasy with because you still have the soot that kind of collects within the tubing
Right.
that you'll eventually have to clean out, which is why they usually suggest pellet stoves. But again, I don't see the need for a stove like that when you can just have a big bank of a wall that absorbs the heat and
Hmm.
takes the heat from the rest of the house and then gives
Yeah.
it back throughout the night, which is the
Yeah.
nice part is it just kind of it's a give and take. So
Yeah. And there's
uh,
definitely a lot of glass available out there and just makes the home, gives it such a beautiful artistic value. I really see when I'm
They are
looking at
really
those.
cool looking.
Yeah.
They remind me of something out of a science fiction movie or book. They're really cool looking. I've heard a lot of good things about them. I've heard that they're really hard to keep up on though. Is that something you've typically read about or?
I haven't seen a whole lot that it takes a lot to keep up. What it is it, if you take a lot of the materials out there yourself and you're willing to do the work, you can put together a 5 to 6 bedroom home for anywhere between 150,000, and that's including the land. Now, you would use tires, you would use glass, but
Right.
just like with any other structure, you have to make sure that the water drains off the roof properly and doesn't
Right.
drain through the building pieces, doesn't create rotting sections. And then if you use other things like hempcrete or other sealants that keep the water out, it can stay even longer. One of the only negatives I've actually heard was that if you use tires in it and you don't cover the tires within the wall well enough and seal
Hmm.
it well enough, you can sometimes get the smell of the rubber from the tires.
Yeah, I've read about that too.
That's honestly the only negative I found. A lot of the people who have ever moved out of the Earthship homes, because this has been a 40-year movement this man's
Right.
done. Um, so obviously there's people who have moved into some and moved out. He's got some that are for sale out there in New Mexico. And from what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of physical upkeep they have to do to it. It's just honestly a day to day, every day you get up and take care of the plants, you take care of whatever animals you have.
Right.
As long as you're not getting rocked by an earthquake, I wouldn't see that the pueblo would actually get damaged or the outside structure.
Right.
Mhm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Daily maintenance of living life in this
Yeah.
manner, kind of more of a almost a self-sufficient homesteading concept and thought there.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. It is very self sufficient. So they usually have, like I said, the greenhouse on that warm bank of the warm windows. And that greenhouse can have anything from the large trees like avocado trees, peach trees, fruit trees, to again also having other plants within there. And the gray water system that they'll use for that, sometimes as long as the people aren't using chemicals to wash their bodies, they can use water from the shower and from brushing your teeth if you're using simple things that are non-chemical to brush your teeth. You can use that water a second time and it can go through a charcoal filtration system, and they do usually run it through almost like a little it looks like an indoor river with the way the stones and the gravel and
Okay.
charcoal filters it. It's fantastic, and then that feeds the plants again.
Yeah,
So that it's an
yeah.
option to do it that way, to where you're using your shower water or your pots of water from your plant or from boiling your pasta, things like that.
Just really a
Kind of
very
giving you
mindful way of living.
yeah, kind of giving you a recyclable for everything, basically. You're recycling your water even.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you can reuse in the houses like that. I think that's why it was so alluring to my friend and I when we were looking into possibly building a house out west and having the Earthship home, because you can build the structure in however you want.
Right.
And what Michael Reynolds has been doing out there is he teaches classes now. And you can either
Okay.
take the classes online or you can attend and work with them over a summer period. And they will gather a group of people who are wanting to learn how to build, and they go out and they help the community build the next Earthship home. So they'll
That's
finish up this
cool.
person's home and then they move on to the next person's. So you're getting experience on building this home while you're helping other people build their homes.
Right.
That's really
I
amazing.
think that's the best.
That's,
It's a
yeah,
very giving community.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
yeah. I did notice when I was looking at what these earth ships are and such that he even has a visitor center. Like say the whole going to and learning in the academy or the online, it just feels a little too overwhelming, or you're driving by and you want to check it out for like the first time. There's a visitor center there.
Not
That's
just a
pretty
visitor
cool.
center, but they also have a couple of them that you can rent out, like Airbnbs. So if you're not sure if the Earthship home is right for you,
Okay.
he can give you a kind of a taste of what it's like to wake up and go out and pick an apple from the inside of your own house.
Oh
It's
man.
it's such a neat concept to just get up and I'm gonna pick my plants from my garden and I get to eat that today.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like
It honestly
something
sounds
to put on my
amazing.
list. My list to do. Sorry,
And
but yeah.
that is definitely my one on my bucket list. Even if I don't end up eventually building an Earthship home like I'd like, I
Hmm.
would love to at least stay in one for just a weekend, see what it feels like.
Yeah.
One of the things I mentioned earlier is that they're starting to use hempcrete, and I should say hempcrete utilizes lime and hemp, and it uses the woody part of the hemp plant. And when
Okay.
they
Like
make
the
this stuff, it's
stem.
yep, the stem of it. And the benefit to hempcrete, besides the fact that it does wick away moisture well, is that especially in the areas they're using it, like Southwest and even into a little bit of California and Oregon, depending on how dry the area is, they run into a lot of wildfires that are out that way. So having your house be withstandable to up to 1,700 degrees temperature is a fantastic thing because then you're not losing your physical structure.
Right.
Hempcrete
Yeah.
can't create the structure to hold it up, but think of it like a spackle you would put on the outside of whatever structure you create. So if you use the tires, fill it with the sand and the dirt, you build your walls, and then you put the hempcrete on the outside of that. The tires and the dirt on the inside are going to be your structure, your bones to your house, where the
Okay.
hempcrete is going to be the outer decorative covering, but that creates a safety factor in the sense that nothing's going to catch fire. They've shown videos of someone taking essentially a torch and just holding it on hempcrete for 6 to 8 hours, pulled the heat source off, and you can touch the hempcrete with your hand, and it's just mildly warm.
That's
Huh.
amazing.
That's really
Amazing.
cool.
It's honestly,
I
I wish we could use that more places, but
Right.
hempcrete's not usable underground or
Ah.
for any structures like that. So you wouldn't be able to put it, say, like on a basement. But
Mm-hmm.
most Earthship homes don't have basements.
Right.
I've noticed they're usually set into a hill, and that hill
okay.
is to use to create that air duct system underneath the hill to create the cooling and heating as you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, being as how that they're typically in the Southwest desert climate,
Hmm.
that kind of makes sense because you don't see a lot of places with basements out there because they just don't. I mean,
It's
they're
just not
mostly,
needed.
yeah, they're just not needed out there. It's very rare that they get a tornado where they need to hide in a bomb shelter. So,
And honestly, if you've built your house or your Earthship home into the side of a hill, you don't need to think about that stuff. Just go to the most inner room that's up against that hill
right,
that has no windows, has no factors that could hurt you,
right.
and you're safe. Plus, I don't
Hmm.
think they get any tornadoes down that way, do they?
Um,
I haven't lived down there,
Actually,
so.
they do, but they're usually like the little microburst ones, so it's not like what we get in the Midwest. No.
No, probably more
Tornado
you'd
alley.
be
Yeah.
at like sea level or below, and so basements would maybe even just cause flooding during those huge rain times, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think that's something more I've heard about in desert areas in
Yeah.
different places. Hmm.
I hadn't really looked into the whole below sea level or what level they have the houses or the Earthship's home sitting. So that's
Yeah.
probably something else I should look into before we eventually, you know, get into the
I
Earthship home.
Right.
I just say that I've kind of looked at Slab City and some of that area, and they don't do basement like underground to have cooling for summer because of that reason there.
Yeah.
That's good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So, yeah.
Ultimately, what stopped us from going and creating our Earthship home as we were pushing and wanting to was just the financial part of it. Because even though you're using recycled materials, even though you're using hands on from other people who are willing to do this as a donation, kind of, you're still ending up having to purchase the land itself. And
Right.
most of the Earthship homes out there, they have 3 to 4 acres of land that go with that particular home in the communities that he's created. And I know he's got
Hmm.
at least 2 communities out there. But Michael Reynolds has been speaking with people even in Sweden and all over the world to see if Earthship homes are something that would work out in their climate, in their area. So
Okay.
it's not just an American movement for the Southwest. This is over a global movement.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
started to push for really to do this because in the 70s, we didn't have a good recycling program. And anybody that grew up knew that we started doing recycling stuff in the 80s. And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
when it really
Yeah.
started taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he utilized that. And I think in a whole, he's kind of moved away from using the steel and the tin like he used to because that's now recyclable. But tires are still not as recyclable as the other items. And
Right.
glass, I think he utilizes that more because it is so easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get into the artistic form, in my opinion, because they'll take glass bottles, get the neck taken off, and take two glass bottles and put them together in the open ends to where it almost looks like a tube. And
Okay.
then you
Yeah.
put that on the wall as they're building it, so you'll have spots of light that comes through. And if you realize a lot of bottles, they could be brown, red, green, blue. You can
Right.
get a plethora of colors. And that's where like the artistic part kind of sparked me being a 3D artist because I like the idea of creating a mosaic on the wall that the light
Mm-hmm.
would come through and it would feel much like the church windows
Yeah.
without being a
Say it sounds like
church.
stained glass.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
very much
Definitely.
so.
Love it.
And
I
then
love it.
the air pocket that's inside of that glass bottle that's been netted together, the two bottles together, that air pocket creates the insulation that you would need to keep your house cool or warm, however it needs to be.
Okay.
So everything
Yeah.
they do, it has like a scientific reason backed to it. So it's not just because it looks pretty.
Right.
Pretty with purpose.
Pretty with purpose. And I think that's one thing we're missing nowadays in the American culture. It's either it's got to be functional or it's got to be pretty. They're
Right.
missing the fact that it can be pretty and functional.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It such a neat idea to expand on. And I love that he's kind of given us this idea and look at this movement and we can do it here in this climate and now we have some new materials to look at. Maybe what else can we do in other climates and
I
really
think
become worldwide more intentional.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what he's doing now is helping people find the materials that work in their particular countries. So like I said, he's worked with people in Sweden and all over the Middle East to help create sustainable housing, especially in areas that don't have a lot of money. And you
Yeah.
figure if even in Africa where they don't have a whole lot of money and they need to build their own houses, they've been able to help create sustainable buildings with them as well. So it's not just something that's kind of a niche, cool looking thing where you have this really cool house in the Southwest.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
actually done so much to create something for the whole world to kind of step into and work with appropriately.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that really being beneficial, especially for the countries like in Africa, where I mean, it is desert climate in most
Mhm.
areas, and um, especially in northern Africa, but where there's a lot of housing issues, and that's something that the community could get together and just help everybody in the town build.
Agreed. He's had over 5,000 students worldwide work with him. And if you consider that over a 40-year period, and some of
Hmm.
these people have stayed primarily in the US to work in just that little community,
Right.
that's amazing to have 5,000 people that have just volunteered their time to learn his skills, to
Right.
learn the ways of what he's done, and to learn directly from him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I really love the educational component of what he's been developing. Um, I was looking at that a little bit more and just like you were saying, it's just online if you need to be online, but really hands-on curriculum there too. It seems like if you're a person just coming out of high school or college and you have these architectural interests or you're an artist, you're more of an artsy person, like so many different people can step in there for self-development, but career development and just education in general. I just was really impressed by his program there with the academics in the academy.
I I think that's one of the things that I liked about him is it wasn't just the intellectual end of it to where it's only people who have the back of architecture. He's got people out there who are artistic like myself that are 3D artists that work with their hands to create sculptures, to create shapes.
Yeah,
And everything out there has a living feel to it. If you look at any of his buildings, they don't all look identical. They look similar to one another, but they look individual and they feel like they're alive, just the way they move, just the way they look. I
Yeah.
can't, I guess it's an artist's term to say that the art feels alive, but it
Yeah,
feels like there's just, it's got a great energy to it.
Yeah.
yeah, it really does. And you know what? We will have some links down below for his website because it is a great website. It has
Oh,
links to being able to book your overnight trip or just go see where to like hang out at, all that stuff. So,
I
yeah.
think that's fantastic sharing the knowledge that he's got. So, yes, please share the links down.
Yeah. And Carrie, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. And we'd love to have you back later for expanding more on this topic or talking about something else. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us today.
Not a
Yeah,
problem.
we'd
It was a
love to
great
have you
time
as a
hanging
regular
out.
guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we're going to come back to this topic later. We're going to dive into more about the tiny homes, the homesteading, all of that kind of stuff in a future episodes. But for now, we're just going to
Definitely.
go and close for the week. And thanks for joining us. Hope
Thank
you guys
you.
learned some stuff about alternative living lifestyles. And if you have anything you'd like to, throw in, if you live in any of these kind of situations, feel free to reach out to us, leave a comment, email us every week now after 1 p.m. at gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. If you feel like you really want to, you can support us on Patreon. Next week, we're going to
Definitely.
be
Definitely.
talking about winning the lottery and financial literacy.
Oh,
So we'll see you then.
yeah, that sounds fun. I'm excited. See you guys
Me
next
too.
week.
Bye, guys.
Every week now, after 1 p.m., Sahara and AJ bringing it again, chatting it up with a mission so clear, changing the world, spreading the cheers, the afternoon fun. Can you feel the sound?